Okay then, this is the third and the last video on relative clauses. In this video, we are going to focus on relative clauses with where, when, and why, and finally, we will focus on reduced relative clauses. Okay, let's get started. Okay, starting with where. When there is a noun in the sentence that refers to a place, we use where to modify that noun. In this use, some common nouns are area, country, city, house, place, room, school, and hospital. We form this type of relative clause in the following way. This is the house. I was born in that house. This is the house where I was born. Let me remind you, where is the same as in which, on which, at which. So we don't use a preposition in the relative clause with where. Therefore, this is the house where I was born in is wrong. Okay, we don't use a preposition before where as well. We use preposition plus which form instead. Let's see the example. Istanbul is a city in which you can come across people from different countries. By the way, this is a more formal use. Istanbul is a city where you can come across people from different countries. Be careful, we shouldn't do this. Istanbul is a city in where you can come across people from different countries. This is not a possible form. Okay, in this slide we can see that there are 4 different ways we can use where in a relative clause. Let's look at the examples. This is the classroom where I took my proficiency exam. This is the classroom in which I took my proficiency exam. This is the classroom that I took my proficiency exam in. And finally, we can omit the relative pronoun as long as we keep the preposition in the sentence. This is the classroom I took my proficiency exam in. Okay, there is one important point we should be careful about. Not every place name is followed by the relative pronoun where. Let's see the first example. New York, which is also known as the Big Apple, is a huge city. In this example, which refers to it in the second sentence below, so using where here is not possible. Let's take a look at the second one. New York, where millions of immigrants live, is a cosmopolitan city. Here, where refers to there in the second sentence, so we use it in place of there, at that place, in that place, and so on. Okay, our second teaching point is when. When there's a noun in the sentence that refers to a time, we use when to modify that noun. In this use, some common nouns are day, moment, period, season, time, and year. We form relative clauses with when in this way. The summer was long and hot. I graduated from university in the summer. The summer when I graduated from university was long and hot. Be careful, when is the same as in which, on which, at which, or during which. Therefore, we don't use a preposition in the relative clause with when. The summer when I graduated from university in was long and hot is not a possible form. Okay, the same rule applies to when. We do not use a preposition before when as well. We use preposition plus which form instead. Let's see the example. We live in a period during which disasters and pandemics have become the norm. Remember, this is the more formal use. We live in a period when disasters and pandemics have become the norm. But we shouldn't do this. We live in a period during when disasters and pandemics have become the norm. This is not a possible form. There are other versions of relative clauses with when. Let's take a look. I still remember the day when I graduated from university. I still remember the day on which I graduated from university. As you can see, this is more formal. I still remember the day that I graduated from university. Here, there is no preposition, but when there is no preposition, we cannot use which. We use that instead. I still remember the day I graduated from university. We can omit the relative pronoun without the need to use the preposition here, different from where. Okay, our next teaching point is why. Why can be used after the noun reason. This is especially true when we are providing an explanation. Let's see the example. One reason why every kid loves crisps might be the ingredient called MSG. In this use, why can be replaced with that or omitted. Let's see. One reason every kid loves crisps might be the ingredient called MSG. But be careful. In this sentence, we cannot use why because there's not an explanation. The reason she gave for her absence was a little selfish. Okay then, we have now come to the last and the most important teaching point in this video. Reduced relative clauses is not simply a grammar rule. Learning how to use this is essential in understanding reading texts, following lectures, online or otherwise, or writing well-developed texts. Okay, let's focus on how and when to use it. Okay, before, with object relative clauses, we learned that there was this omit rule, in which we take out relative pronouns who, which, whom, and that. But with subject relative clauses, we have the reduction rule, which, as its name suggests, involves reducing the clause to phrases. Okay, there are some rules to follow while forming reduced relative clauses. If a relative clause contains any form of the verb be, omit the relative pronoun and the verb be. Let's see the example. Lionel Messi, who was awarded Ballon d'Or last year, is a talented footballer. Lionel Messi, awarded Ballon d'Or last year, is a talented footballer. Okay, there are three main different outputs with a reduced relative clause. Let's see them. Those who are concerned with climate change have started to take initiative. Those concerned with climate change have started to take initiative. This is a participle phrase, as it includes a verb form. I've always wanted to live in a house that is by the sea. I've always wanted to live in a house by the sea. This is called a prepositional phrase. Aziz Sancar, who is a famous Turkish scientist, lives in the USA. Aziz Sancar, a famous Turkish scientist, lives in the USA. This is called appositive. These are noun phrases used in non-defining relative clauses. You can also bring the appositive phrase in the beginning to increase emphasis. A famous Turkish scientist, Aziz Sancar, lives in the USA. Okay, let's look at the other ways of forming reduced relative clauses. If there's an active verb in the relative clause, it can be reduced as present participle or verb ing. Let's see the example. Those who want to buy that sports car will end up paying a fortune. Those wanting to buy that sports car will end up paying a fortune. Or, if the relative clause contains the verb have, the verb can sometimes be replaced with the preposition with. We live in a city that has ancient security walls. We live in a city with ancient security walls. Another way to reduce a relative clause is by using an infinitive. It is done in the following situations. If the first, the second, the last, the only, or a superlative adjective comes before the noun. If the relative clause includes a modal verb. Let's take a look at the examples. Neil Armstrong was the first person who set foot on the moon. Neil Armstrong was the first person to set foot on the moon. Among the applicants, Jason is the only candidate that deserves this post. Among the applicants, Jason is the only candidate to deserve this post. A working mother has a lot of things that she should do. A working mother has a lot of things to do. Okay, there are things that we should be careful about while using reduced relative clauses. It is not always possible to reduce relative clauses, especially in the situations given below. Okay, when there is time confusion, particularly with perfect tenses, let's see the example. City officials who have initiated the project hope that it will cut costs by half. So it is not possible to reduce this as city officials initiating the project. When the action is not repeated or refers to a single event in the past, not many people remember the name of the person who invented the radio. Again, here it's not possible to reduce it as inventing, because this is a single event in the past. And finally, in non-defining relative clauses, we usually don't reduce active verbs. My mother, who got limited formal education, is a self-taught woman. Okay, here it is not possible to replace who got with getting. Okay then, we have now come to the end of this three-part online video lesson on relative clauses. I hope the videos will be useful for you. Take care everyone.